The sand beneath my boots crunched with the sound of crushed bone and dried blood. I could taste copper in the air, thick and metallic, mixing with the scent of sweat and fear that rose from the arena floor like steam from a boiling pot. 60,000 voices roared around me in the Colosseum, a sound so massive it seemed to vibrate through my chest and shake the chronofiber in my brown coat. I wasn't supposed to be down here. I was supposed to be observing from the stands, recording this moment in 65 BC for the archives, documenting the brutal entertainment of the Roman Empire with the detachment of a historian. But nothing ever goes according to plan when you're a chrononaut. The gladiator in front of me was dying. His name was Marcus, though I wouldn't learn that until later, until it was too late to matter. Blood poured from a gash in his side, painting the sand dark crimson. His opponent, a massive Thracian with scars covering his arms like a map of every battle he'd survived, raised his sword for the killing blow. The crowd's roar became a unified chant. Death. They wanted death. They always wanted death. My hand moved to the chrono device on my left wrist before I could stop myself. One jump, one small temporal shift, and I could prevent this. But that wasn't my mission. I wasn't here to save anyone. I was here to watch, to record, to bear witness to history without changing it. Those were the rules. Rules I'd followed for 3 years, through a dozen missions across time. Rules that had kept me alive and kept the timeline intact. The sword came down. I looked away. That's when I saw her. She moved through the crowd like a ghost, barely noticed by the Romans shouting for blood. A slave, I realized, from the simple brown tunic she wore and the clay amphora of wine balanced on her shoulder. But it wasn't her status that caught my attention. It was her eyes. Even from 30 feet away, even in the chaos of 60,000 screaming spectators, I saw the intelligence in those dark eyes, the carefully hidden defiance, the strength that no amount of slavery could break. She was beautiful in a way that had nothing to do with her features, and everything to do with the fire I could see burning behind the mask of submission she wore. She glanced in my direction, and for just a moment our eyes met. Something passed between us in that instant, something I couldn't name but felt in my bones. Recognition, maybe, though we'd never met. Understanding. A shared knowledge that we were both outsiders in this place, both observers of a cruelty we couldn't stop. Then she was gone, swallowed by the crowd, and I was left staring at the space where she'd been, trying to understand why my heart was hammering against my ribs like it was trying to escape. The roar of the crowd pulled my attention back to the arena. The Thracian stood over Marcus's body, sword raised in victory. Another day in the Empire. Another life ended for entertainment. I forced myself to focus on my equipment, checking the chronometric readings, making sure the temporal field was stable. This was my job. Document and observe. Nothing more. But I kept thinking about those eyes. Over the next week, I established my cover carefully. I was Nikolos, a Greek merchant from Corinth, interested in investing in gladiatorial combat. It was a good cover, one that gave me access to the underbelly of the Colosseum, to the training grounds and slave markets where the real business of the games happened. I greased palms with Roman coins I'd fabricated in my own time, smiled at men whose hands were stained with blood, and played the role of a rich fool looking to get richer off the suffering of others. That's how I met Rufus. He found me watching the morning training session in the Ludus, the gladiatorial school connected to the Colosseum. The sound of wooden practice swords striking each other echoed off stone walls slick with humidity and the permanent stink of unwashed bodies. Rufus was a lanista, a trainer and owner of gladiators, and everything about him screamed predator. He was in his 50s, with a face that looked like it had been carved from granite with a dull chisel. Scars marked his arms, and one ran from his left eyebrow to his jaw, a souvenir from his own days in the arena. But it was his eyes that told you everything you needed to know about Rufus. They were cold, calculating, empty of anything resembling human compassion. This was a man who saw people as commodities, as things to be bought, trained, used up, and discarded. "You have the look of a man with coins to spend," he said, his Latin thick with an accent I couldn't quite place. "And the Ludus always welcomes new investors." I turned to face him, keeping my expression neutral, businesslike. I'm interested in the games. Profitable business, if managed correctly. His smile didn't reach his eyes. Profitable indeed, for those who know quality when they see it. He gestured toward the training ground where two fighters circled each other, sweat streaming down their bare chests. These men are the finest in Rome. I train them, I feed them, I make them into legends. And when they die, he shrugged, I replace them. The arena is hungry, my Greek friend. It's always hungry. We talked business for an hour. He showed me his stable of fighters, described their records, their specialties, their value. Every word out of his mouth was laced with casual cruelty, the kind that comes so naturally it's not even conscious anymore. These weren't men to him. They were investments, tools, things. That's when I saw the fighter that would change everything. He was young, maybe 28, with the build of someone who'd been training to fight since childhood. Dark hair, darker eyes, and a face that might have been handsome before a lifetime of violence had marked it with scars and the permanent wariness of someone who knew death was always one mistake away. He fought with a controlled fury that was beautiful and terrible to watch, each movement precise, efficient, deadly. But what struck me most was something in his eyes, something I'd seen before recently. The same defiance I'd seen in the slave woman at the games. That one, I said, pointing. Who is he? Rufus's expression shifted, became almost proprietary. Ah, Philon, one of my finest. A Murmillo, trained to fight with sword and shield. He's won 43 bouts, lost none. The crowd loves him. He paused, and something dark crossed his face. He'll bring me great profit before he dies. He's never lost? That's remarkable. He fights like a man with something to prove or something to live for. Rufus laughed, a sound like rocks grinding together. Either way, it makes him valuable. I watched Philon train for another few minutes, studying him, trying to understand what it was about him that seemed so familiar. Then he turned, just for a moment, and looked directly at me. Our eyes met, and in that instant, I saw it. The same fire, the same carefully hidden strength, the same eyes. The woman from the Colosseum. They had the same eyes. 3 days later, I saw her again. I'd been spending my afternoons at the Colosseum, playing the role of the interested investor, watching the games with the other merchants and minor nobility who filled the better seats. The afternoon sun beat down on us with relentless intensity, turning the stone seats into griddles and making the smell of thousands of unwashed bodies almost unbearable. But I barely noticed. I was looking for her. She appeared during the break between fights, moving through the stands with her amphora of wine, refilling cups for a few coins, keeping her head down, her movements practiced and efficient. I watched her work her way closer, serving other patrons until finally she reached my row. Wine, Dominus? Her voice was soft, musical, with an accent that wasn't quite Roman. Please. I held out my cup, and as she poured, I said quietly in Greek, What's your name? She froze for just a heartbeat, then continued pouring as if I hadn't spoken, but her hands trembled slightly, enough that a few drops of wine spilled onto my wrist. I'm sorry, Dominus, she said in Latin, not meeting my eyes. It's all right. I'm Nicholas. I'm from Corinth. I kept my voice low, non-threatening. I heard you might understand Greek. She finished pouring and moved to leave, but I caught her wrist gently. She stiffened, and I immediately released her, holding up my hands to show I meant no harm. I'm not trying to frighten you. I wanted to know your name. For a long moment, she didn't respond. The crowd roared around us as new fighters entered the arena. Then, so quietly I almost didn't hear her, she said, Helena. Helena. I repeated the name, tasting it. That's Greek. I was Greek once, a long time ago. She finally looked at me, and I saw the same intelligence, the same fire I'd noticed before. But now I saw something else too. Pain. Loss. A grief so deep, it had carved itself into her bones. Before I was brought here, before I was sold. I'm sorry. She laughed bitterly. Roman gold buys many things, Dominus, but not enough to change the past. My name is Nicholas, not Dominus, and I stopped, unsure what to say. What could I say? That I understood? That I was sorry? that I wanted to help. All of it felt inadequate. I would like to speak with you again, if you're willing. She studied me for a long moment, her expression unreadable. Then she said, "The 4th hour after sunset, behind the vendor stalls on the north side. Don't be followed." Before I could respond, she was gone, disappearing into the crowd with the practiced ease of someone who'd learned to be invisible. I arrived early, making sure I wasn't followed, using every trick I'd learned in 3 years of covert operations across time. The area behind the vendor stalls was dark, lit only by scattered oil lamps and the distant glow of the city. It smelled of rotting vegetables and human waste, the less pleasant side of Rome that the tourists never talked about. I waited in the shadows, hand near the small energy blade concealed in my coat, ready for treachery or danger. Helena appeared like a ghost, slipping between 2 stalls without a sound. She'd changed out of her serving tunic into something slightly less ragged, though still clearly the clothing of a slave. In the lamplight, I could see her more clearly. She was maybe 27, with dark hair pulled back in a simple braid and features that spoke of Greek ancestry. Beautiful, yes, but it was a beauty carved by hardship, sharpened by survival. "You came," she said, and I heard surprise in her voice. "Of course, did you think I wouldn't?" Men say many things in the daylight that they forget when the sun sets. She moved closer, studying me with those intelligent eyes. "Why did you want to speak with me, Nicholas from Corinth? What does a wealthy merchant want with a slave?" "I want to know your story." She laughed, but there was no humor in it. "My story? It's a common one in the Empire. I was born free in a village near Thessaloniki. When I was 5 years old, raiders came. They killed my parents, burned our home. They took me and my brother. We were separated, sold to different masters. I was brought to Rome, raised as a slave, taught to serve wine and keep my mouth shut and pretend I was grateful for the mercy of my masters." Her voice was hard, controlled, but I could hear the rage underneath. "That's my story. Does it satisfy your curiosity?" "Your brother," I said quietly. "What was his name?" Her expression shifted, became vulnerable for just a moment. "Philon, he was 6, just a child. I've spent 22 years wondering if he's alive, if he remembers me, if—" She stopped, turning away. "Why am I telling you this? Because sometimes we need to tell someone, even if they're a stranger." I took a step closer. "Helena, I think I know where your brother is." She spun back to face me, eyes wide. "What? How could you possibly—" "The gladiator. Philon. Fighting in Rufus's ludus." I watched the emotions play across her face. Disbelief. Hope. Fear. "He has your eyes. The same fire. I noticed it the moment I saw him. Philon is here? In Rome? He's alive?" Her voice broke on the last word. "I think so. If it's the same Philon. Do you remember anything else about him? Anything that would help us be sure?" She thought for a moment, then reached for the collar of her tunic, pulling it aside to reveal her left shoulder. There, barely visible in the lamplight, was a small birthmark shaped like a crescent moon. We both had this mark. Our mother said it meant the gods had chosen us for something special. She laughed bitterly. "I suppose slavery and gladiatorial combat are special, in their way." "I'll find out," I said. "I'll see if he has the mark. And if he does, Helena, if he is your brother, would you want me to help you? Help us? Help us how?" She looked at me with a mixture of suspicion and desperate hope. "You can't just free slaves, even if you wanted to. The penalty. I know the penalty, but I'm not like other merchants, Helena. I have resources, ways of doing things that others don't." I met her eyes, trying to convey sincerity without revealing too much. "Trust me, if Philon is your brother, I'll find a way to help both of you." "Why?" The question was almost a plea. "Why would you do this for us? What do you want in return?" The honest answer was complicated. Because I'd spent 3 years watching history unfold without intervening. Because I was tired of being a passive observer to cruelty. Because when I looked at her, I saw something that made me want to be better than the rules required. Because maybe, just maybe, some things were worth breaking the rules for. But what I said was simpler. Because it's the right thing to do. She stared at me for a long moment, and I saw the exact instant she decided to trust me. 'Twas a conscious choice, a deliberate act of faith that probably went against every survival instinct she'd developed. Then she nodded once, sharp and decisive. "Tell me what you need me to do." Over the next week, I played the most dangerous game of my life. I cultivated Rufus, becoming his friend, his confidant, the wealthy Greek investor with more money than sense, who was fascinated by the brutal romance of the arena. I drank with him, laughed at his cruel jokes, pretended to share his view of humans as commodities. Every word tasted like poison in my mouth, but I smiled and played my role. And I got close to Phylon. Rufus gave me unprecedented access to his ludus, thinking I was evaluating potential investments. I watched the gladiators train, learned their routines, studied the security of the compound, and I looked for an opportunity to speak with Phylon alone. It came during the afternoon rest period, when the fighters were allowed a brief respite from training. I found him sitting in the shade of the training ground wall, cleaning his practice sword with the mechanical precision of someone who'd done the same task 10,000 times. Up close, the resemblance to Helena was even more striking. Same eyes, same bone structure, same barely contained fire. "Phylon," I said, sitting down next to him without invitation, "your master speaks highly of your skills." He didn't look up from his sword. "My master speaks highly of my value." "It's not the same thing." "Fair point." I paused, choosing my words carefully. "How long have you been fighting?" "Since I was 12. 16 years of this." He gestured at the ludus around us, the stone walls, the practice weapons, the other fighters. "Long enough to forget what freedom feels like. Do you remember your life before? Before you became a gladiator?" Now he looked at me, eyes sharp and suspicious. "Why do you ask?" "Curiosity. And because..." I pulled down the collar of my tunic, revealing a fake birthmark I'd created using chronofiber technology, shaped like a crescent moon. "Because I'm looking for someone who might have had a mark like this." The change in Phylon was immediate and dramatic. He dropped the sword, hand moving to his own left shoulder, covering what I now knew was the same mark. His face went pale, then flushed with emotion so intense I thought he might attack me. "Where did you get that mark?" His voice was barely a whisper. "Who told you about it?" "Your sister," I said quietly. "Helena. She's here in Rome. She works at the Colosseum. She's been looking for you for 22 years. I've seen men react to many things across my travels through time. I've seen soldiers learn of their victory, prisoners learn of their reprieve, lovers reunited after years apart. But I've never seen emotion as raw and pure as what crossed Phylon's face in that moment. Disbelief, hope, joy, grief, all of it crashing over him like a wave that threatened to pull him under. "Helena," he breathed. "Little Helena. She's alive. She's here." Tears streamed down his face, and he made no effort to hide them. "I thought she was dead. I thought..." He couldn't finish. "She's alive, and she wants to see you. But Phylon, we have to be careful. If Rufus suspects anything..." "I don't care about Rufus." His voice turned hard, dangerous. "If my sister is alive, if she's here, I'll burn this whole ludus to the ground to get to her. That's exactly what you can't do. Listen to me. I have a plan. A way to get you both out of Rome, away from Rufus, away from slavery. But you have to trust me, and you have to be patient." He studied me with eyes that had seen too much violence, measured too many opponents. "Who are you, really? You're not a merchant." "No," I admitted. "I'm not. But I am someone who can help. Will you trust me?" It was the same choice I'd given Helena, the same leap of faith. Phylon took a breath, then nodded slowly. "What do you need me to do?" The plan I developed over the next 3 days was risky, elaborate, and relied on timing so precise that even a small mistake could get all of us killed. But it was the only plan that had a chance of working. The key was the upcoming games. In 5 days, there would be a massive tournament in the Colosseum, celebrating some minor military victory on the Empire's frontier. Rufus's gladiators would be featured prominently, including Phylon, who was scheduled to fight in the main event. That meant increased chaos, more spectators, more distractions, and more opportunities. I spent those days preparing, using my chronofiber technology to fabricate documents, create disguises, and plan escape routes. I also spent them with Helena, meeting her in secret, planning every detail. And somewhere in those stolen moments between planning and preparation, something shifted between us. It started innocently enough. We'd meet after dark, hidden in the shadows behind the Colosseum, and I'd update her on the plan, on Phylon, on our progress. But the conversations began to drift, to become something more than tactical briefings. She told me about her childhood in Greece, about the village by the sea where she'd been born, about the sound of her mother singing while she worked. I told her about my own past, carefully editing out the parts about time travel but sharing the loneliness of always being an outsider, always moving on, never able to stay. "Do you have family?" she asked one night, her voice soft in the darkness. "Someone waiting for you in Corinth?" No. No family. No one waiting. The truth of it hit me harder than I expected. My work requires me to travel constantly, never staying in one place for long. It's not a life that allows for connections. That sounds lonely. It is. But it's the life I chose. I looked at her, at the way the lamplight caught in her dark hair, at the intelligence and strength in her eyes. At least I thought I chose it. Now I'm not so sure. She moved closer, close enough that I could smell the faint scent of wine and bread that clung to her from her work. "Nikolos, who are you really? You speak like a philosopher, fight like a soldier, plan like a general. You carry yourself like a man used to command. You're not a merchant." "No," I admitted. "I'm not. But I can't tell you what I really am. Not because I don't trust you, but because it's complicated in ways I can't explain." "Then tell me this. When we're free, when Phylon and I are away from Rome, what will you do? Will you come with us?" The question hung in the air between us, heavy with implications. What she was really asking was, could there be something between us? Could this connection we'd forged in the shadows become something more? And the answer, the honest answer, was no. Because I was a chrononaut. Because in a few days, I'd be jumping back to my own time, leaving 65 BC behind forever. Because everything about this was temporary, a brief intersection of two lives that were never meant to meet. But I didn't say that. Instead, I reached out and took her hand, feeling the warmth of her skin, the calluses from years of labor, the strength in those fingers. "Let's focus on getting you both free first. Then we'll see what's possible." She leaned forward and kissed me. It was soft, tentative, a question as much as a statement. I kissed her back, losing myself in the moment, in the feeling of her lips on mine, in the way she fit against me like she'd been made to be there. For a few perfect seconds, nothing else existed. Not the mission, not the timeline, not the rules. Just Helena and me and the connection we'd forged in the shadows of ancient Rome. When we finally broke apart, she rested her forehead against mine, her breath warm on my face. "Whatever happens," she whispered, "thank you for giving me hope, for giving us hope. We're not free yet," I said. But even I could hear the emotion in my voice. "I know, but for the first time in 22 years, I believe we might be." The day of the games arrived with the weight of inevitability. I woke before dawn in the small room I'd rented near the Colosseum, checking my equipment one last time. The chrono device on my wrist was set for emergency extraction if everything went wrong. The energy blade hidden in my coat was charged and ready. The forged documents declaring Phylon and Helena as freed slaves were perfect down to the seal. Everything was as ready as it could be, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was going to go wrong. The Colosseum filled early, 60,000 Romans eager for blood and spectacle. I took my seat in the section reserved for wealthy merchants and minor nobility, close enough to see the arena clearly, but far enough from the imperial box to avoid too much scrutiny. Rufus sat nearby, surrounded by other lanistas, already drunk despite the early hour. The preliminary fights were brutal and efficient. Men died for entertainment, their blood soaking into sand that had absorbed the life of thousands before them. I watched with detachment born of practice, focusing on the plan, on the timing, on the thousand things that needed to go right. Helena moved through the stands, serving wine, her face a mask of calm that I now knew hid desperation and hope. Our eyes met once, briefly, and I gave her a small nod. Everything was ready. Then Phylon entered the arena. The crowd roared its approval, recognizing one of Rome's favorites. He wore the armor of a murmillo, a large rectangular shield, a gladius sword, a helmet with a distinctive fish fin crest, and arm and leg guards. But it was the way he moved that captured attention. Confident, deadly, a predator in human form. His opponent was announced, Gaius, a hoplomachus fighting with a spear and small round shield. Bigger than Phylon, older, with the scars of 100 battles marking his body. The odds were posted at even money. This was meant to be the spectacle of the day, the fight everyone remembered. They circled each other as the crowd screamed encouragement and insults in equal measure. Gaius struck first, his spear darting out like a serpent's tongue, forcing Phylon back. But Phylon's defense was perfect, his shield positioned just right, his movements economical and precise. He was studying his opponent, learning his patterns, waiting for an opening. The fight went on for 10 minutes, then 15. Both men were bleeding from minor cuts, exhausted from the heat and exertion, but neither would yield. The crowd was in ecstasy, chanting their names, demanding more blood. That's when I saw Rufus stand up, his face twisted with anger. He pushed his way toward the arena entrance, moving with purpose. Something was wrong. He'd noticed something, suspected something. I was out of my seat instantly, following him, my heart hammering against my ribs. I caught up with him in the corridor beneath the stands, in the shadowed passages where slaves and workers moved unseen by the crowd above. "Rufus," I called out. "Is something wrong?" He turned, his face flushed with wine and fury. "That Greek slave girl, Helena, she's been asking questions. About Phylon, about how to buy a gladiator's freedom." His eyes narrowed. "You wouldn't know anything about that, would you, my Greek friend?" Everything crystallized in that moment. He knew. Maybe not everything, but enough. Enough to be dangerous. Enough to ruin the plan. I had maybe 3 seconds to make a choice that would determine whether we all lived or died. "I might," I said carefully. "I've been considering purchasing Phylon's contract. And the girl, she has some connection to him. A childhood friendship, I believe. A childhood friendship." Rufus laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You think I'm a fool? I know exactly what's happening here. You've been playing me, using your gold to get close to my fighters, planning something." He stepped closer, his hand moving to the knife at his belt. "The question is, what do I do about it? You could accept a very generous offer for both of them. Enough gold to buy 10 more gladiators. Or I could have you arrested, executed, and keep what's mine." We stood there in the shadows, 2 men calculating odds and outcomes. Above us, the crowd roared as the fight in the arena intensified. Time seemed to slow, each heartbeat thundering in my ears. Then Helena's voice cut through the tension. "Rufus, there you are. A nobleman in the imperial box is asking for more wine." She appeared from a side corridor, her amphora of wine balanced on her shoulder, her face showing nothing but the bland servility of a good slave. But I saw the tension in her posture, the way her eyes flicked between Rufus and me, calculating the danger. Rufus turned toward her, distracted for just a moment. It was all I needed. I moved fast, grabbing his knife hand, twisting, using his momentum to throw him off balance. He was strong, a former gladiator himself, but I'd been trained in combat techniques from a dozen different time periods. In 3 seconds, I had him face first against the wall, his arm twisted behind his back, my energy blade pressed against his throat. "Helena, go," I said quietly. "Get to the east entrance, wait for us there. But, go, now." She hesitated for one more heartbeat, then ran. Rufus struggled against my grip. "You'll never escape. The guards will find you unconscious in about 5 seconds. I pressed a specific point on his neck, a technique I'd learned in feudal Japan, and felt his body go slack. He'd wake up in an hour with nothing worse than a headache and no memory of the last few minutes. I lowered him to the ground, then ran toward the arena entrance. The plan was in shambles. We were out of time. But maybe, just maybe, we could still pull this off. I emerged into the arena just as Phylon delivered the killing blow. His gladius caught Gaius in the side, slipping between the ribs with the precision of a surgeon. The older gladiator fell, blood pooling in the sand, and the crowd went insane with bloodlust and joy. Philon raised his sword in victory, and in that moment, he saw me. Our eyes met across the expanse of sand and death, and I saw him understand. Something had gone wrong. The plan was accelerated. It was now or never. I ran onto the sand, ignoring the shouts of the guards, the confusion of the crowd. Chronofiber technology let me move faster than any Roman could track, a blur of motion that seemed almost supernatural. I reached Philon in seconds. "We're out of time," I said urgently. "Helena's at the east entrance. We need to go now." "The guards. I'll handle the guards. Run." He didn't argue. We sprinted toward the arena entrance, and I pulled a device from my coat. A flash generator that would create enough light and sound to temporarily blind and deafen everyone in a 50-foot radius. I threw it behind us and kept running. The explosion of light and sound was deafening. Even prepared for it, even with my chronofiber-enhanced senses dampening the effect, it was overwhelming. Behind us, I could hear the screams of the crowd, the shouts of confused guards, the chaos of 60,000 people who'd just witnessed something they couldn't explain. We burst into the corridor beneath the stands, Philon still in his gladiator armor, both of us running flat out. Helena was waiting at the east entrance, her eyes wide with fear and hope. "Philon!" She ran toward him, and they collided in an embrace that was 22 years in the making. Brother and sister, stolen as children, reunited in the shadows of the Colosseum. They held each other, crying, speaking in rapid Greek, making up for decades of loss in a handful of seconds. "This is beautiful," I said, "but we really need to move." We ran through the streets of Rome, 3 fugitives in a city of 1 million people. I'd planned an escape route that would take us through the narrow alleys and crowded markets where we could lose ourselves in the chaos. Behind us, I could hear the shouts of guards, the alarm bells, the sound of pursuit. We ran until our lungs burned, until the sounds of pursuit faded, until we reached the safe house I'd prepared on the outskirts of the city. It was a small building, barely more than a shack, but it was secure and stocked with supplies. Inside, we finally stopped, gasping for breath, the adrenaline still pumping through our veins. Philon was still in his gladiator armor. Helena still clutched her amphora of wine like a lifeline, and I was probably the only man in ancient Rome wearing chronofiber technology under a brown coat. "We made it," Helena breathed, and then she was laughing, the sound bright and free and full of joy. "We actually made it." Philon joined her, and soon they were both laughing and crying at the same time. The emotional release of 22 years of separation and pain and survival. I watched them, feeling something twist in my chest. Happiness for them, but also a deep aching loneliness. Because I knew what came next. As night fell, we sat together in the small house, sharing bread and wine and stories. Philon and Helena talked about their childhood, about the parents they barely remembered, about the village by the sea. They talked about the years apart, about survival, about the hope they'd each carried that the other might still be alive somewhere. And I sat with them, part of the circle but also separate, the man who'd made this reunion possible but who couldn't stay to see it continue. Eventually, Philon fell asleep, exhausted from the fight and the escape and the overwhelming emotion of the day. Helena sat next to me, her hand in mine, her head on my shoulder. "What happens now?" she asked quietly. "Now you and Philon leave Rome. I have papers that declare you both freed slaves. Travel north to Gaul maybe, or Britannia, somewhere the empire's reach is less certain. Start a new life. And you? I have to go back to Corinth, back to my work." "Liar." She said it softly, without accusation. "You're not going back to Corinth. You're going somewhere else, somewhere you can't tell me about." I didn't respond. What could I say? She lifted her head to look at me, her dark eyes searching mine. "I don't understand who you are, Nicholas, or what you are, but I understand that you saved us, that you gave us our lives back, that you risked everything for 2 slaves you had no reason to care about." I had a reason. Because it was right? Because, I struggled for words. Because when I looked at you, I saw something worth saving, worth fighting for. Because I was tired of watching history happen without being part of it. Because sometimes the rules are wrong and someone has to break them. She kissed me then, slow and deep. A kiss that tasted of gratitude and desire and goodbye. We both knew it was goodbye. We'd known from the beginning, even if we hadn't admitted it. When we finally broke apart, she said, "Will I ever see you again?" The honest answer was no. I'd be leaving this time period, returning to my own era, and the chances of our paths ever crossing again were essentially zero. But I couldn't bring myself to say it. Not when she was looking at me with those eyes that had first captured my attention in the Colosseum. Not when everything we'd been through was still fresh and raw. "I don't know," I said instead. "My work takes me far from here, to places you can't imagine. Then I'll remember this." "Remember you?" She touched my face, tracing the line of my jaw with her fingers. "The stranger who gave me back my brother, who gave us both back our lives." We stayed like that for a long time, holding each other in the darkness, neither of us wanting to be the first to let go. But eventually, exhaustion pulled her under, and she fell asleep in my arms. I held her while she slept, memorizing the weight of her, the sound of her breathing, the way she fit against me, memorizing something I could never have. When dawn came, I gently extracted myself from her embrace and stood. I had maybe an hour before they would wake up, an hour to make my preparations and disappear. That was how it had to be. Clean breaks were better than prolonged goodbyes. I left them the papers declaring their freedom, along with enough gold to get them far from Rome and start a new life. I left a note keeping it simple. Be free, be happy, live the life you deserve. You'll never see me again, but I'll never forget you. Then I stepped outside into the cool Roman dawn, activated my chrono device and felt the familiar sensation of temporal displacement as the world around me began to shimmer and fade. But I hesitated. One last look, one last moment. Through the window I could see Helena stirring, waking up, reaching for me and finding empty space. I saw the confusion on her face turn to understanding, saw her find the note, saw her read it. I saw her cry, and I saw Philon wake up and hold her while she wept for something she'd known she could never keep. I forced myself to look away and completed the jump. The transition back to my own time was rough, the chronometric turbulence worse than usual, probably because I was making the jump with my emotions in chaos and my concentration shot to hell. When I materialized in the Chrononaut facility, I actually stumbled, something that hadn't happened to me in 2 years. Director Chen was waiting for me in the debriefing room, her expression neutral in that way that meant she knew something had gone wrong, but was waiting for me to explain it. "Mission report," she said simply. I gave her the official version. Successfully infiltrated gladiatorial culture, documented combat techniques and social structures, extracted without temporal contamination. Mission parameters met. What I didn't tell her was that I'd violated half a dozen protocols, that I'd actively intervened in the timeline to save 2 people who should have died as slaves, that I'd fallen for a woman I could never see again, that I'd broken rules I'd spent 3 years following without question. She studied me for a long moment, her dark eyes seeing more than I wanted them to see. "You're different," she said finally. "Something happened. Just tired. It was a long mission. Nikolos." She stopped, shook her head. "Nicola, we both know that's not true, but I'm not going to push. You completed the mission, that's what matters. Take a few days, rest. Then we'll discuss your next assignment." I nodded and left, making my way to my quarters, a small apartment in the facility that had never felt like home because I was never there long enough for it to feel like anything. I stood under the shower for a long time, letting the hot water wash away the sand of the arena, the dust of ancient Rome, the physical traces of a world I'd left behind. But I couldn't wash away the memories. Helena's eyes, the feel of her hand in mine, the sound of her laugh when she realized they were free, the way she'd said my name in the darkness. I looked at my chrono device, at the readings that showed I'd successfully completed another mission, added another data point to humanity's understanding of history. It should have felt like enough. It should have felt like purpose. Instead, it felt empty. Over the next week, I went through the motions. I filed reports, attended briefings, reviewed footage from other missions. I did my job, but part of me was still in Rome, watching a brother and sister reunite, holding a woman I could never have, making choices that probably violated the temporal prime directive but felt more right than anything I'd done in years. Director Chen noticed, of course. She'd been running the Chrononaut program for 15 years, and she didn't miss much. "You're not the first," she said one day, cornering me in the observation deck. "You know that, right? You're not the first Chrononaut to get attached, to fall for someone across the timeline, to want to save people instead of just watching them. Did it get easier? For the others?" She was quiet for a long moment. "No, it doesn't get easier, but it gets manageable. You learn to carry it. You learn that what we do matters, even if the cost is personal. And if I'm not sure I can pay that cost anymore, then you take time. You remember why you signed up for this. You remember that we're preserving history, documenting humanity, making sure that the stories of people like Helena and Phylon don't just disappear into the void." She put a hand on my shoulder. "You saved them, Nicola. You gave them a chance at life they never would have had. That matters, even if you can't be there to see what they do with it." She was right, of course. I knew she was right, but it didn't make it hurt less. A month later, I took my next assignment. The year 1347, the Black Death spreading across Europe, documenting the social collapse and human resilience in the face of plague. It should have been straightforward. Observe and document. No intervention. No emotional attachment. But on the second day, I met a physician named Catherine who was trying to save her village despite having no idea what caused the disease. She was brilliant and brave and completely out of her depth, fighting an invisible enemy with nothing but determination and compassion. I found myself helping her, sharing knowledge of hygiene and quarantine procedures that wouldn't be discovered for centuries. Breaking rules I'd promised myself I wouldn't break again. And I realized Director Chen was wrong. It wasn't getting easier. It was getting harder. Because now I knew what it felt like to make a difference, to save someone, to be more than just an observer. But I also knew the cost, the impossibility of staying, the endless string of goodbyes, the collection of memories that grew heavier with each mission. That night, back in the facility after extracting from 1347, I sat in my quarters and thought about Helena. I wondered if she and Phylon had made it to Gaul, if they'd built a life there, if she ever thought about the stranger who'd appeared in her life, changed everything, and disappeared again. I wondered if she'd found someone else, someone who could stay, someone who could give her the normal life she deserved. I hoped she had, because she deserved happiness. She deserved everything, even if it meant forgetting me. I pulled up the mission files from Rome, scrolling through the documented footage looking for any glimpse of her. And there she was, moving through the Colosseum crowds, her face a mask of servile obedience that I now knew hid so much more. Beautiful, strong, free, if only in her mind. I froze the image, studying her face, memorizing details I was afraid I'd forget. I kept my promise, I said to the frozen image. I gave you your freedom. I gave you your brother. I gave you a chance. The image didn't respond, of course. She was 2,000 years in the past, living a life I would never know, in a world I could never return to. I closed the file and stood, moving to the window that looked out over the temporal facility. Somewhere out there, across the vast expanse of time, people I'd met were living their lives. Helena and Phylon in ancient Gaul, Catherine fighting plague in medieval Europe. Others from other missions, other interventions, other rules broken in the name of doing what was right. And I was here alone, carrying the weight of all those goodbyes, preparing for the next mission, the next impossible choice between observation and action. Director Chen called it the cost of being a chrononaut, the price of moving through time, of seeing history unfold, of knowing too much and being able to change too little. But I was starting to think it was more than that. I was starting to think it was the cost of caring, of allowing yourself to connect with people even when you knew you could never stay, of breaking your own heart over and over again in the name of doing what's right. And the worst part? I'd do it again. All of it. Every broken rule, every impossible goodbye, every moment of connection that could never last. Because the alternative, being the passive observer, watching cruelty and injustice unfold without acting, that was a cost I couldn't pay anymore. So I'd keep traveling, keep documenting, keep breaking the rules when I had to, keep collecting memories of people I saved and people I left behind, keep carrying the weight of all those goodbyes. It was the price of being who I'd become. A chrononaut who'd learned that sometimes the most important things we do are the ones that aren't in the mission parameters. My chrono device beeped, signaling an incoming message. New mission briefing, new time period, new people to meet and leave behind. The cycle continued, but before I opened the message, I allowed myself one last moment to remember the taste of Helena's kiss, the sound of her laugh, the feel of her hand in mine, the look in her eyes when she realized her brother was alive. I'd given her freedom, I'd given her hope, I'd given her a future, and she'd given me something too. She'd reminded me why I became a chrononaut in the first place, not just to observe history, but to be part of it, to matter, to make a difference, even if the cost was personal, even if the cost was love. I opened the mission briefing and began to read. Another time, another place, another chance to do what was right, whatever the cost. Because that's who I was now. Not just an observer, not just a chronicler. A man who'd learned that some rules were meant to be broken, that some people were worth saving, that some moments, however brief, were worth any price. I am Nicola Brown, a traveler through time and history. If you enjoyed this adventure of mine, subscribe to the channel and share it.